right now, we're very pleased to have the owner and the head honcho at JPG Consultants. He's, basically known as a rock star in the food industry. I hope that's all right. Jeff Grogg is our guest this morning. Good morning,
Oh,
Jeff.
thank you. I appreciate that.
I hear that from a lot of people. Oh, yeah, he's a rock star. You look a little like a rock star.
Well, you let your hair grow out and people say all sorts of things.
Well, yeah, because I ran across an ad for Kashi, and you were actually the pitch man and the executive at Kashi Cereals at once upon a time. But you're the guy out there in Hawaii on the surfboard or climbing the tree talking about all natural food and the product. I'm trying to think of another guy that did that where he was an executive and pitch man. I'm thinking Dave Thomas, maybe from Wendy's. But that was you with shorter hair.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. At Kashi, we ran a series of commercials that were focused on that featured the employees, and I was fortunate enough to be in one or two of them, and really enjoyed it. It was a fantastic experience. Although humbling to understand how many people it actually took on the set to make me look good on TV. But
well, let me backtrack a little bit. You went to Purdue,
yes,
and you studied what there?
Food science.
Food science, and then went to Kellogg.
Correct.
And how long did you work at Kellogg?
So I was at Kellogg almost 18 years, about half of that time on mainline Kellogg items. I did a lot of work on cornflakes early days, nutritional improvements, things like that. Worked on Rice Krispie treats when that was new, and eventually ended up on Kashi and spent about another eight or 9 years on the Kashi brand.
And Kashi, most people, I think, have tried that or are familiar with it. I loved it. I ate a lot of it back around, I want to say, the year 2000-ish.
Mm-hmm.
They had a brand called Good Friends that I just loved, and it was part of my health regimen. But, I mean, that was the whole thing, and I saw a couple of your commercials, It's like, nature made these great foods. They taste great. You can't screw up with it. And that basically has resonated here now 19 years later. It's gaining more and more momentum, I think.
Yeah, it just continues to grow. People want to know what's in their food products. They want to know what they're eating. They want to be able to relate to what they read on a label and, be able to see and pronounce the things that they're eating. So I think those sort of things have been really a longstanding trend. Kashi was early in that movement, along with Cliff Bar and some of these other brands that are still winning today. And, I think those sort of there's been just heightened awareness of what's in food products and how people want to eat.
Now, Kashi, had they been around before Kellogg acquired it?
Yeah, Kashi was already nearly 15 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and it's one of those overnight success stories where they've been working at it for a long time. The founders there had owned a natural food store, and they were trainers, and they had built that brand over years, selling it out of the trunk of their car and to their clients, and all of a sudden in the late 90s, it just sort of took off. They caught some momentum and decided it was bigger than they could handle and went ahead and sold to Kellogg's.
And that's when you came in. But were you already, as a food scientist, aware that there was starting to be a changing mindset? Because it seems like that was really before it. I mean, we've seen a lot more of that lately with millennials and some Gen Xers, but it seems like in the late 90s, people weren't really thinking about healthy foods all that much.
That's true. I mean, that was the emergence of organics, the emergence of more thoughtful eating. But interesting, and I'm sure a lot of people who work at Kellogg's would know this. We were actually investigating some very healthy products even before that. In the last couple of years, I was working in the mainline Kellogg brands on sort of advanced innovation, and we were working on products that had fruits and vegetables, snuck into bars, which has really become popular in the last couple of years. So we were working on some very healthy things internally. But I think at bigger companies, there's pressure to launch big things that will be big right away. And smaller companies, chase niches more and are more willing to be patient. So, there were some very healthy things in the development pipeline at Kellogg's, even way back then. But it's harder for big companies to act small like that.
That's a great segue into JPG. JPG, are those your initials?
It is,
Or,
yes.
or
It's
is that?
very uncreative on the, on the marketing side.
Well, I just remember it as the file extension for an image file.
Yes, there's that too.
But JPG moved into the new offices yesterday, I think, down at, what is it,
62.
62 Michigan Avenue, right across from the old Hall of Justice. And what a great building. Grace Health used to be in there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. We're very fortunate to get that building. We had a lot of help from John Hart and the downtown development folks. We've had Grace House was fantastic in the process, and we were supported financially by Chemical Bank and the Northern Initiatives Fund, the new fund set up for development in downtown. So we're thrilled to be downtown and be a small part of the renaissance that's happening down there. And this building was just perfect for us, so it's worked out really well.
And what I started to learn about JPG is, even though you do have make some food products, basically you're taking ideas that other people may have and trying to help them decide if that can actually make it or how it can be a successful product and get from point A to point B to point C, right?
Yeah, correct. We have 42 people now, a lot of people very experienced in the industry. So we have a group that helps with that front end, that strategy and building the business plan and the business model. We have product developers that actually make the products, and then we have others that design the supply chain and make sure the foods are safe and are going to last on shelf and all those sorts of things. So we do touch a lot of different facets of the industry, and we help companies in a broad array of support.
And of course, you have your own company here, Snackwerks, in Battle Creek, which I think is getting close to 3 years in operation.
Yes, that's true. Snackwerks is a contract manufacturing plant up on the north side. We're excited to be in that community up where Bronson at Home formerly was, and that's we get to do manufacturing there, so actually create the products that go to market at Costco or Meijer, again, mostly healthy foods and a lot of emergent brands there. But as the larger companies do try to play smaller and be more nimble, we're working with some of them as well.
Mm-hmm. But you're actually expanding a little bit out at Snackwerks and getting more of the building and a little more elbow room out there.
Yeah, we're growing there as well, and with moving our JPG team out and downtown, it creates even more space there for us to expand. Right now, we have 35 employees. We expect to be above 50 by the end of the year. We're launching a new line, adding another shift, so really strong growth out there as well.
Well, and that's pretty much what you promised Joe and the folks at BCU almost 3 years ago when you got started with this project. So that's encouraging. It's working. It's on track.
Yeah, that's, again, great support from the community there. The Zone 2 leaders from the community helped us get in that building, had to approve a zoning variance, and got behind us for creating jobs up there on the north side in manufacturing. And then the Battle Creek Community Foundation, BCU, as you mentioned, the DIF helped us with a loan. And again, a lot of support from the community and helping us to get started and get on the right track. And now we're hopefully delivering everything that we've said we would do.
There were a couple of products being showcased down at your new offices last night. One was really interesting. It's Keurig with booze in it.
Yes.
I mean, my goodness, a Keurig that's either Irish coffee, and there was another one that I think it was like a hot apple cider.
Yes.
And they actually have a shot of vodka and well, I don't know if it's a shot, but they have vodka in one and Irish whiskey in another. They were fabulous. This was what, an idea that came to you guys, and then you basically got it ready to go and handed it over to somebody?
Yeah, so that came out of us joking around internally a little bit about, this meeting would be better if there was a little something extra in the coffee. And we pursued that. We joked about it for a few months, and then we said, maybe this is a real idea. So from within JPG, we put this project together, and we've spun that out now into a new company called Cask and Kettle. And our former head of strategy and marketing at JPG is now the CEO of that company. We just raised $1.3 million from investors, many of whom are in Michigan, to pursue that and expand that brand. So off to a great start, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that could make our weekly promotions meeting go a lot more fun, I think. I'm not sure we can get that past the GM, but maybe. That's a great idea. And those little Keurig things, I asked a couple of questions. They're completely recyclable except for the little paper thing that you peel off the top.
Right.
So those can be reused, recycled, and also, get a little bit of booze in you. And that was really good. There was also some snack products right next to it. That's another example of what JPG has been doing.
Yeah, the Junkless team is a couple of former Kellogg guys as well that started this brand over in Kalamazoo. Making clean label granola bars. So if you pick up a Quaker bar or one of these brands that have been out there for a long time, there's 20 plus ingredients in there. And obviously if you make a granola bar at home, you don't need all of that. And so they worked with us, simplified a granola bar back to 8 ingredients, great tasting, fantastic products. And that's something we're proud to be involved with as well.
Oh, I sampled them. And they were all fabulous, and good to know too that there weren't a lot of additives, weren't any additives in there. It was just pure food.
Right. Yeah, and they're growing really well. They're selling great at Meijer. Actually, struggling to just keep product in stock right now. It's going so well, so that's fantastic. And again, great guys had a vision for what they wanted to do, and this is what we see a lot in the industry is just don't have all the resources, so we can step in, support them, and hopefully they can continue to grow.
So if I came to you at JPG Consultants and said, my great-great-grandmother had this wonderful Russian recipe for borscht, you would probably tell me, well, Tim, people aren't going to eat borscht. Or you might say, you know what, let's look at that because maybe we can find a way to make this something people want.
Well, beets are on trend right now, so it's not a bad time to be doing borscht if you're ever going to do it. But yeah, a lot of what we do on the front end is assess, is there really an opportunity here or an opportunity at scale? We don't understand the farmers market environment and the local environment that way. There's plenty of resources around Michigan and locally here between Sprouts and everybody else that really own that space. And we love that, but that's, we're assessing, can they work at retail? Can they work at larger scale?
Because that's where your experience is.
Right.
Here are the ingredients that we want. Here's what they'll cost. Here's what it'll cost to produce it and market it and everything.
Right.
And add it up. Go make your borscht at home
Right.
because it's not going to work.
Yeah, and part of our job is to help them understand what it's going to take. I mean, it takes a lot of money and a lot of effort to take these products to market at scale. So we not only assess, do we think the idea has merit, but do they have the wherewithal to do it, or how do we help them get the funding and the support to go launch a brand? Because it's hundreds of thousands of dollars just to get to market with in a brand environment like that.
And we're talking with Jeff Grogg of JPG Consulting. He knows his food. It was fun. One of my best friends also knows a lot about food, so I get to sit and we talk about things like, non-GMO and gluten-free. My wife has decided that gluten caused her a lot of health problems, and since she stopped eating food that had gluten in it, she is, I want to say, 100% healthier and happier. So I know from her experience it's a real thing. What can you tell us about, well, first of all, gluten?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly been a big trend the last few years, or really for a decade or more, toward gluten-free, and now you're seeing that play out in new ways, such as grain-free, and just continued expansion of that position. My wife and my daughter also have to avoid gluten because of some sensitivities, and there's at the far end of the spectrum celiac, which is a disease and very serious, but there's a lot of people with sensitivities to a lot of foods, so that continues to be a hot category. The gluten-free market is now billions, and is really just people are more personal about how they view food and what they eat, and are really a little more tuned in to how what they eat makes them feel.
Somebody told me something recently, or I read it somewhere, that the wheat grown in Europe is naturally gluten-free because they don't allow these GMOs. And I learned last night talking to one of your people that that's complete BS.
Yeah, that's not true at all.
Because wheat is not genetically modified. There's no way to genetically modify wheat, right?
Well, there may be a way, but there is no commercial genetically modified wheat. So all wheat
Okay.
is non-GMO. That's not the issue. That's just wheat inherently has gluten. That's part of what makes bread so fantastic. That's part of why wheat is what it is.
And some people are sensitive to that particular food, just like they are. Some
Right.
people are sensitive to other food.
Could be dairy, could be peanuts, whatever. But there's top 8 allergen list in the U.S. that food manufacturers have to be aware of and handle appropriately and so forth. And gluten has always been something that's recognized as an allergen. For many people, it's just fine. For many people, it's wheats and wheat-based products are good, healthy foods, but there are people with sensitivities.
Sure. Now, what are we talking about when we say non-GMO? Because that's such a big deal now for people.
Right. Yeah. Genetically modified foods are there's a list of products that are genetically modified where the plants have been modified to be disease resistant or drought resistant, or there's a number of ways that can be done. So there's processes that have changed the genetic structure of these plants, and there's the research is a little bit ambiguous about whether that's how meaningful that is, but certainly to a lot of people, whether it's from an environmental standpoint or a health standpoint, that believe that they should avoid those products. So certainly, again, one of the biggest growing trends over the last decade has been the emergence of non-GMO as a positioning and a powerful statement to people about, again, what's in your food or what's not in your food.
But I mean, haven't we been genetically modifying food for centuries? I mean, look at the Mayan corn, these little purple things. And at some point we got to ears that are longer and yellow and juicier. And I mean, but in the laboratory, it's just accelerated a lot more.
Well, the difference actually in most of these techniques that people have issues with are actually taking genes from one type of organism and putting them into another organism. So it could be a gene from fish that's implanted into a watermelon or whatever. So it's really for eons people have been doing hybridization and creating better plants through the right blends and through breeding techniques. And now there are accelerated breeding techniques, but there's also, I think, where people have a little more hesitation is when you're taking a gene from one species and putting it into a totally different species.
Well, I have just 600-700 more questions, but we're about out of time for today. So maybe we can have you back here periodically and get an update on some things down at JPG and Snackwerks and some of the other related companies too in town. And we've got some really great momentum going. I think maybe Battle Creek could once again become the food city.
Yeah, we'd love that. We hope to play a role in that. I think there's a lot of assets here, a lot of talent, and there's some growing momentum and again, some interest from the powers that be around the city in developing that. And we have a great heritage to build on, both in food and in innovation, and we look forward to seeing that come to fruition here.
Jeff Grogg, thanks again for being our guest here on WBCK.
Thanks for having me.